Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our pod.
Hello. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday.
What's happening?
Well, I have a pretty fun announcement to make. So we talked about, maybe it was the last episode we recorded. I don't know. We were on the cusp of getting 2,000 downloads,
right,
which we said in the previous episode that we know that for a lot of podcasters, that's like y'all have been going on for, what have we been doing this for like 8 months now? That's not a lot, but for us, I mean, that's more than I could have asked for.
I mean,
honestly.
We're just like two normal, regular people. Like we are not.
This isn't
celebrities.
This isn't in us. And this also isn't. It would be fun if this were a full-time career, but that's not the aspiration. We just wanted to. To us, we're talking to the cosmos. We're just talking We're just talking to hear ourselves, to hear our voices.
No, we're not.
We love talking to each other, and we love talking about movies, and we love giving our opinions. So we figured easiest thing to do is, start a podcast, and here we are. We're almost 80 episodes in.
Yeah,
we just hit 75 with Firefly.
Right.
Which I always forget what our milestones are. So
yeah, so by the time you hear this,
yes,
we will have hit 80 episodes.
Yes.
So this is a lot for us. I mean, I'm going to admit, like, when we first started it, and we've talked about that, like, we didn't know how this was going to go. We didn't know what the heck we were doing, and we kind of have found our rhythm with the outline, with the style, with our banter, and I can't believe we're at almost 80 episodes.
Right. It's pretty insane. I thought doing 2 episodes a week, I thought that was going to be a stretch. I thought we weren't good. I didn't know if we were going to be able to do that, and there are times where it's a struggle to get motivated, just like anything, especially when you're volunteering your time. So it's just,
Well, I don't know if I've ever talked about this either. I think it's not so bad, because I did wonder if we were going to be able to keep up with the 2 episodes a week. We're not heavily produced. We're not answering to anyone but ourselves.
Right.
So I wonder if that is why a lot of podcasters are only doing 1 episode a week, because there's a lot of pressure on them, where we're doing this for fun, and
that's true.
It's kind of easy.
Yeah.
Now, if we were stylized and produced and we had brand deals and sponsors, obviously I think this would be really different. So I do like how it is, but if there's anyone out there that wants to sponsor us, hit us up.
Right. I mean, it's not that if we were sponsored or if we were monetized. I think it's just an easy way to put it. If we were being paid to do this, I don't think, honestly, other than I would love to have someone edit the episodes for me.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I don't enjoy it. There are just the times where, I'm not an editor. I learned how to edit doing this podcast. I knew very little other than, editing videos on your phone or editing pictures on your phone. That's about, or, using Paint or something like that. It's just kind of taught myself, and I'm still learning more. I really dug into one of our editing softwares the other day, because I was doing something like with video, and I was just like kind of messing around with it, and I was just like really learning a lot, and I was just like, oh, if we had a video podcast, this would be really interesting, but I'm still, learning about it.
Well, that's what I mean, is I think that a lot of the, YouTubers that we watch or podcasters that we listen to, not only do they just have their podcast, but they have their shorts, their reels, their TikToks, their YouTubes, their podcasts, their Patreons, and they're not all the same.
Yeah.
So they're all different because those are different audiences and different attention spans that you're trying to reach. And so I can see how they only do one episode a week because they've then got to break that episode down into all those different parts.
Right.
And I imagine it's a lot of work. So
oh yeah, I mean just kind of tooling around with it. I was just like it in just the very basic level of editing that I do for our episodes. It's still time consuming. I mean, like it's my entire. It's usually one episode. It's and I know some people have to work on they spend like not days, but like a few days editing or an entire day editing. And for me, it's just a couple hours. But I mean, I have a full-time job and we have a life, and it's very time consuming when I have all this stuff going on, but it's like I have to edit this because I'm literally oftentimes editing the episodes and then uploading them the next day. That's usually how it goes for me. And we have kind of found a rhythm. And like you said, we have found a rhythm and we've kind of gotten the feel of what we're capable of and what we do. And I feel like we have really hit a stride, and we're just kind of it really is I mean, I make the joke a lot, but like we are at an hour at just about the end of every single episode, and it's really impressive that we kind of have started creating this like internal clock of recording.
And I mean, for your editing, I know it's a lot of work, and it's also a struggle in the sense of our schedules, because obviously you work at night for the majority of your work week. And I'm working during the day, which means I'm on phone calls, I'm on Teams, I'm teaching, I'm typing. And so it's hard for you to edit during the day when I'm doing stuff. So either like you go to the room or you try to take advantage of a time that I'm just emailing and not on calls. So it there's a lot to work around for us. And I'm really impressed that you've maintained the schedule. I think we've maybe had one blip where we missed posting an episode, but
we missed one in January during Snowpocalypse, and then we missed one in February because we just had so much. We just had so much.
So we're trying to
on.
get ahead, and we have a vacation that's coming up, and I think that's also nice that it's just us and it's what we want to do, and we control it. So if we miss an episode, we know you're going to miss us, but we'll be back.
Right.
So
and I try to keep it. I try to communicate that with everyone. Like, hey, I know we have a very small audience, but I still want to be considerate and let people know that we're not going to have an episode on. I usually try to do it on a Tuesday because Friday is like people maybe are TGIFing and want to hear it on Friday on their way to and from work. But yeah, and also I will just kind of say one more thing, that it is difficult, especially to do a podcast sometimes, especially when we keep saying we have full-time jobs. This isn't our job, obviously. You all know this by now if you've listened to the podcast before. If this is your first time listening, hi, my name's Jeff.
I'm Anna.
But it's really difficult sometimes because I work the job that I have, and I think for both of us really kind of drains our social battery. Yeah. Especially for me, because I'm an introvert and I kind of I get re-energized by like not necessarily being by myself, but just kind of like being away, kind of having quiet time, like just kind of, and then I kind of re-energized. So I get excited to talk and I get excited to socialize. But at my job, it's nothing but socializing, and it's nothing but communicating, and it's nothing but listening to people complain and listening to people kind of say the same things over and over again. And by the time I get home, like, I don't want to talk anymore. I don't want to think about anything. I just want to get in bed and snuggle with my boo and watch some YouTube. But, I as soon as we start recording, I'm good. Yeah. Kind of like how I am right now. Like I was so tired when I got home, and I was just like, all right, let's record. And I went and took a bath, and I kind of just had my little quiet time, and then I came and sat back down. I feel refreshed and I have my refresher, and it always, as soon as I hit record, I feel fine. Yeah. That's usually it. That's usually what happens. Yeah. There are the times where we're both really tired, though.
Oh yeah. And I know it's like last night we were going to record and you were like, no, I haven't finished typing. And also
every time having a night off or a full day off, it's always let's record. And I had such a rare Friday night off.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like, I know we had a plan to record. I'm like, let's just eat dinner and then get in bed.
Movie.
We watched Companion, which is a really good movie.
If you have Amazon Prime Video, rent it or wait until it's free.
It was really good.
It was really good. I told Alicia about it today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we are we have a kind of a fun episode today. This was one of the shows that we kind of replaced last minute because we had another show, but availability. We always try to pick a show that's available on some streaming platform, not just to rent. We feel like that's the best way to promote these shows
that are available
that are available on Netflix, Hulu, and all those. So we put in this one because we also don't really do horror that often or any type of that. We usually maybe like once every other month we'll kind of have something horror thriller. But yeah, so it was funny because it also like wasn't on any lists when I was looking up like TV shows that are named after U.S. cities.
Oh,
it wasn't. I think I had to find like a letterbox type place where it was literally just like a database of just, even if it was like, it was like international, it was like anything named after a city. And I kind of had to like sift through all that, and I think I finally saw it. I'm like, oh yeah, let's try this one. So we're doing Salem today. The pilot name is called The Vow, and neither one of us had ever seen this. I feel like I saw the pilot before, but I think, and I'll talk about it in a second, I think like it wasn't maybe that I didn't watch it. I think I made a joke about it on Facebook.
Oh.
Where I said, well, I'll just tell the joke now because it's not like it's not the most amazing joke in the world.
Okay.
It's not a joke worth saving. No, I think I just made the joke because maybe I watched some of it. And I was just like, Salem, 1692, everyone has perfect teeth. It's just like, everyone's wearing makeup and their hair is styled. Like I was, in that sense, I always like kind of like to make those jokes. But so we are going to get into some fun stuff because we're talking about horror stuff, which is my favorite.
Yeah.
So Anna's going to go ahead and give us some episode and series information.
All right, Salem. The pilot was called The Vow. Salem was an American supernatural horror series that ran on WGN from April 20th, 2014 to January 25th, 2017.
WGN, I know.
Yeah, that's a random one. For 3 seasons with a total of 36 episodes. The series was created by Brannon Braga and Adam Simon. Braga has mostly worked in the sci-fi genre, writing for the Star Trek franchise, including Next Generation, Voyager, and was a co-creator for Enterprise. Simon wrote for several horror movies, including The Haunting in Connecticut and Bones. The pilot was directed by Richard Shepard. The series follows Mary Sibley, a powerful witch who controls the Salem witch trials by exacerbating hysteria amongst the Puritans as an act of revenge. Problems arise when her long-lost love, John Alden, returns to Salem, complicating her plans. Most of the characters are based on real-life people that were involved in the Salem witch trials. The cast includes Janet Montgomery as Mary Sibley, based on the real-life Mary Walcott. Baton Rouge native Shane West as John Alden, love him. A former soldier who has recently returned to Salem and does not share the Puritan beliefs.
You love Shane West or John Alden?
Shane West.
I'm just being stupid.
Okay. Seth Gable as Cotton Mather, a completely unhinged preacher who is leading the charge with the witch trials. Tamsin Merchant as Anne Hale, a young woman who thinks for herself. Ashley Marakwe as Tituba, a house slave for the Sibley family who is secretly a witch. Elise Eberly as Mercy Lewis, a troubled young woman who is seemingly possessed by the devil. Ido Goldberg as Isaac Walton, a former friend of John's who now serves as more of a harbinger upon John's return. And Xander Berkeley as Magistrate John Hale. Salem received mixed reviews from critics and fans, often being criticized for being an exploitation of an American tragedy. However, thanks to streaming, Salem has gained a small but loyal fan base, and you can currently watch the entire series on Hulu.
Well, if your main criticism is exploitation of an American tragedy, maybe they shouldn't have accused all of these innocent women of witchcraft.
Right.
So we can,
well, yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yes,
like, I
like a catch-22.
Right. I just thought that was, when I saw that, I just thought that was interesting, and I was just like, yeah, I need to include that, because, like, that just feels counterproductive. It just feels like kind of like a pointless critique. I get what they're saying. It's just,
yes.
It just kind of just feels like, well, we kind of do that all the time with, like, Civil War movies and movies about, like, the Holocaust, and I don't think it's any different. I mean, you have Inglourious Basterds, which is a complete fictionalized tale of World War II, and it's, like, praised and everyone loves it, so I don't understand why this is such a taboo subject.
It's kind of like how we talked about musicals, like Hamilton,
right?
That's true. Like, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm agreeing. Like, I mean, everyone freaking loves Hamilton, and it was all about a bunch of, like, buttheads,
right?
So,
slave owning aristocratic
men who didn't want to pay their taxes. All right.
So, what did you? Okay, so. First, had you ever heard of this show before we...
I may have heard of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just be mixing it up with all the Salem's
yes.
Lot, whatever, of various...
Lords of Salem, there's all these different Salems.
Salem things. Salem the cat from
Sabrina
the Witch. I don't know. But, yeah, so I do love a lot of history and things like anything that is based on real life, whether or not it's
historical fiction or not,
right? Whether or not they take their, a little extras with it and whatnot. Right. But I do love when it's somewhat close or somewhat inspired by real life events.
So what did you? So like I said, I feel like maybe I watched the pilot. Maybe I was just aware because it was Shane West.
Yeah,
and Baton Rouge, he's a hometown hero, local. But I don't know if I ever watched it or not. I knew about it. It's Salem. It was around for 3 seasons. It wasn't like it was super popular, but I remember like seeing like maybe not previews for it, but like trailers. Maybe like I saw like the series premiere trailer.
Well,
at
I'm
some
gonna
point,
say I wasn't watching a lot of WGN back in the day.
That's also kind of the thing. I don't
probably
even
why I never knew about it.
I don't even know if that's like basic cable or network cable. I don't know anything about
that's probably basic cable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like a.
You're probably right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah,
I think
so. Now that I'm kind of thinking about it, it probably is a cable channel.
So I will definitely say. I mean, I don't think I ran across
that. Might be the main thing. Because when this came out, I had cable, so I could have very easily watched it, but I probably didn't. I probably just remember it because Shane West was in it. But I did not know that Janet Montgomery was in it, and she was the main. She was in one of my favorite episodes of Skins, and she played a pretty prominent role in that episode, and kind of made me want to go back and watch Skins. But maybe we have that saved for a future month. But yeah, I immediately got into the pilot. I was immediately into it. I'm a lot like you. Like, I like historical, different types of story. I'm not so much of like, let's watch the Civil War movie. Like, I'm not so much about that. I'm more of just kind of like the more like the pockets of history that are more, I don't know, Salem is pretty well talked about, but just not necessarily like war stuff. I like the kind of the stuff like this where you kind of look back on it and you're just like, what the hell was everyone thinking? You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of one of those things, and that kind of brings me to. Oh no, what did you think of it? What did you think? of the show?
I really liked it. I mean, I'm not gonna say like I was immediately like, let's watch the next 10 episodes, but I mean, if we were going to watch, I mean, I was interested, and I think it left you wanting to know what else was going to happen.
Yes.
I mean, a lot happened in the pilot, and it was just a lot of like. Whoa.
Yeah.
And, like, everyone seemed to have like not like a little bit of a secret, but like I guess there was.
I mean, if now that you kind of say that, it is a very classic like small town big secrets kind of thing.
Because it started with a bang,
right,
and then all of a sudden it cut to the future, and you're like, okay, how did we get here? Like,
right.
You're missing that middle point.
Yeah.
So I think obviously that's probably what's going to happen later in the show is you're going to
probably
learn about Mary and what's happened since, John Alden left and then came back.
The series of events in between. Yeah, yes. I would really like to know that too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we kind of said it, you kind of said it we both said it a second ago that there are just so many different Salem things. The Salem witch trials. I mean, I remember reading The Crucible when I was in high school. I remember first learning about the Salem witch trials when I was in like elementary school. Maybe it wasn't taught, but I like knew about it. I definitely learned about it in middle school. Because I remember the Crucible movie came out, the one with Winona Ryder and Joan Allen. I think like Winona Ryder and all of them. I definitely saw that. And I was in middle school, and that kind of revitalized the interest in the Salem witch trials. Why do you think we're so, I don't want to say obsessed, but why do you think we're so like fixated on that point in time? Because why are there so many Salem witch trial movies, TV shows?
Well, because I don't know if this just sounds lame, but I think it's just bizarre. It's always kind of my question of like, really any start of anything. Like I think I've said it before about stuff like who decided who was the first king? Like who just decided, well,
I'm the king.
Yeah. Well, we have possibly those issues going on right now, but like for British royalty, you're like, okay, I'm king and now my blood is special and everyone who like marries me and is of my children,
has royal blood.
They're royal blood.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing for me with witches. It's kind of the whole Puritan thought process of like that there's evil and I'm deciding that you're evil, like, and then people would just believe it.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, with no like real fact or knowledge, you're just, and that's always a dangerous thing. And, people sometimes tend to do that without facts and whatnot. So you could see how unhinged it became in those times. And, the poor women, had no support, no voice or vote or like say in anything that happened to themselves.
And anyone that did defend them
were considered.
I mean, because that's what happened to the real life John Alden.
Yeah,
he was one of the ones who tried to defend them, and even John Hale, who eventually he was one of the big people that were accusing them, and then later on he was just like, maybe
we're a little crazy.
And then he was probably accused of being a witch. Like, so it was just one of those
protecting
things,
them or something.
And it's really interesting because I can not even that long ago in the 80s and 90s, there was the Satanic Panic, and there was all of this, hearing all of these made up rumors about like, oh, there was this nursery school and it turned out it was a front for a devil cult. And like, there were all these things going on in the 80s and 90s where like none of it was true. There was no fact ever, like, but these people were going on TV and they were like, oh, well, 1 out of every 5 person is probably in a devil cult. Those aren't real numbers, but I mean, like, they were just saying some, they were scaring everyone into thinking that, the devil was everywhere and these devil worshippers.
Yes.
And it's no coincidence that it was during the 80s when Reagan was president and it was the time of Christian conservatism, and we're going to scare you into, your kids doing drugs, and your kids has, I hate to say it, your kid has AIDS, your kid has, your kid worships the devil, like, but unless he, goes to church. It was just this really weird time, but it was very similar. It was like a modern day version of the Salem witch trials, because you have, what was it? The Paradise Lost, The Devil's Knot, the 3 boys from West Memphis, Arkansas, who were accused of being in a devil cult and murdering 3 boys simply because they wore black and listened to heavy metal. They were children. Like, they were 16, 17 years old, and they have spent half of their adult lives in prison over no physical evidence, no confession. They forced them into a confession. All of the witnesses were I put that in quotations. You can't see me do it. I put that in quotations. These witnesses, all of their testimonies ended up being fake. They all ended up being made up because they just wanted they just wanted an answer for who killed these 3 little boys.
Right.
And they couldn't find it, and so they were like, let's just accuse these 3 boys because these other 3 boys because they're different. And that is, I mean, if anyone's never seen the Paradise Lost trilogy documentary, it is absolutely fascinating. Like, it is a true 20th century witch trial. Like, it is full on, and it is heartbreaking because these were also kids. And I mean, like, and one of them was like, he had like below average intelligence. He kind of had to be like, he was kind of the one that they forced into a confession because he didn't, he was just like, if you can, because the cops do the thing where like, this is why I don't like cops. They do the thing where it's like, oh, well, we already know you did it, so just confess and maybe you won't get death row. They'll do something like that, and it's just so frustrating to watch. But for them to finally be exonerated and for them finally to be released from prison, and for so many of the people that were accusing them in the documentaries to finally come out and be like, we were wrong, it's very satisfying to see. It took 25 years, but, it ended up becoming this kind of like lesson, be like, no, you need physical evidence. Like, you can't just send people to jail for life because of hearsay.
Well, I also think, I don't like looking at like the list, the Salem witch trials.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like about a year and a couple of months.
Oh yeah, it wasn't even that long.
Yeah, and so like over 200 people were accused and 30 people were found guilty, and they hanged them. It was 14 women and 5 men, and some died under torture, refusing to enter in a plea like that. So you can see how that happens. But I mean, it's insane for me because, like, again, they just were deciding it'd be like they'd walk around, I guess, and be like, you're a witch, and I'm going to convince everybody of it, and everyone then would just be like, okay, you're a witch,
and
I'm
that's
scared.
Why people would always kind of, there was this, running joke with back then, if a woman had any form of intelligence, they'd accuse her of being a witch, or it was like any form of an opinion of their own opinion, they'd be accused of being a witch. And they say it as a joke, but it was a real thing. It was like any type of individuality was seen as evil, and that is so much of what is still wrong with our country.
Yeah.
It has not changed. I mean, it's changed some, but like not really. It's just a different costume now. It's just a different disguise.
And I mean, one of the things it says is that the majority of the accusers, who were teenage girls, finally admitted that they had made up the charges.
Yeah.
I mean, very much like what happened in that story of the West Memphis 3. So, I mean, it just still happens. And I think it's just the fascination of, religion, folklore, witches, and kind of this mass hysteria scaring you into doing stuff that is just, still probably a lot of what, happens today.
Oh, it's completely. Speaking of folklore, so we categorize this as a supernatural horror series, but I would kind of put it also underneath the folk horror subgenre, which is one of my favorite subgenres of horror. It's something that has kind of become a trend in the last maybe 10 years or something like that. Kind of had a resurgence. There's a lot of modern folk horror. There's a lot of good folk horror out there. So we're just going to kind of talk about some of our favorites. First of all, sorry.
Okay.
For anyone that doesn't completely know what folk horror is, I have a little definition here.
Okay.
Thanks to Wikipedia. So folk horror is a subgenre of horror fiction that uses elements of folklore to invoke fear and foreboding. Typical elements include a rural setting, isolation, and themes of superstition, folk religion, paganism, sacrifice, and the dark aspects of nature. Although related to supernatural horror, folk horror usually focuses on the beliefs and actions of the characters rather than the supernatural, which I think is a pretty good description. That's a pretty good description.
Yeah.
So, what are some of your favorites? Did you write some?
I did. So I don't know if it would count. American Horror Story, a lot of their kind of anthologies, like Coven.
Roanoke is a good one.
Roanoke, that one was. I loved Roanoke.
That's a good pull. Yeah.
obviously Blair Witch.
Oh, yeah.
I also have Children of the Corn.
Classic.
And then Midsummer was a current one,
Yeah.
a recent one that I really loved. I had honestly no idea what it was going to be about.
Same.
When you
Yeah.
were like, let's watch this. And I mean, I was like, from the get-go,
everyone was like, you need to watch this movie.
Whoa.
Yeah, everyone was like, you need to watch this movie. You need to watch this movie. And I'm just like, I kept seeing like the 2.5 hour run time, and I'm just like, you know,
Did
like,
we see that in the theater?
no, we watched it at home, but
okay.
it was mid. It was 2020. It was like mid. We were at home.
Oh, gotcha. It was pandemic, so
Yeah.
we didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah. So we finally watched it, and I love that movie. I think because a lot of folk horror does fall under supernatural. I think the folk horror that like Midsummer stuck with me for such a long time because it felt so rooted in reality. Like, and even though you have all these things that are seemingly supernatural, there's nothing supernatural going on. Like, there's nothing really supernatural going on.
Oh, in Midsummer?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no.
And that's kind of the whole thing. Like, that's kind of the whole deal is like you're kind of waiting for like, maybe that was just me. I was kind of waiting for like the supernatural angle, but it was like, no, these are just people who really believe in what they're doing.
Oh,
and it's all about, you know, and then there's the whole like juxtaposition with like the Americans and like kind of the culture clash and the whole thing with Will Poulter. Like, it was just kind of that whole movie. I remember the first time watching it, it was like I felt like my heart was racing the entire time because you feel that anxiety of being so far away from everything that you know, being so far away from what makes you comfortable, being kind of thrown into this, not just this different country, but this completely different culture that's so different than American culture, and kind of seeing like what happens with, you know, a very fantastical version of that. Obviously, I think if we went to the Netherlands or something like that, I don't think that would happen to us. But
well, right, and then I think a lot of it was that kind of kept us in was we didn't really know exactly what was happening.
Yes,
like you were just like, okay, and then like Will Poulter, and then the guy who was taking pictures wasn't supposed to do that, and then there's the whole bear scene and a lot of other things happening, and I think it was just this like all of it. Yeah, it just kept building and building and building
until
and then
that end.
Yeah, and what I also thought was kind of somewhat amazing was the sort of 180 it did from the beginning, where, and I can't remember the actor's name.
Florence Pugh.
No, the boyfriend, Florence Pugh's boyfriend.
Yeah.
Who didn't want her to come
right.
and was like trying to break up with her, and he was like being kind of a jerk and all. And then in the end, karma's a bitch.
Right.
You know, and so you're just like, go Florence Pugh.
Right.
Like,
that ending is
yeah. And so
the definition of a WTF
I mean, here
movie.
you're like thinking possibly the bad thing's going to happen to her.
Right.
And really in the end, they're all like, no, we want you.
Yeah.
And you now have like the power. And so that was pretty amazing to the end of it. And I think that's kind of why I really liked it, because she kind of got the last laugh.
Right.
So
literally.
Yeah.
She was laughing at the end.
Yeah, she was.
All right. So some of my favorite folk horror. I have a list.
Okay.
Like I said, this is like one of my favorite genres, so I kind of just couldn't pick one. And I kind of wanted to pick from kind of all spans of time because there are so many that I like.
Okay.
First and foremost, Serpent in the Rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
That is such a good movie. That is another movie that the first time I watched
forget about that one.
The first time I watched it, my heart was racing. That's another one of those movies where like Bill Pullman is like telling everyone what's going to happen. No one believes him, and then what he says ends up happening, and it's just one of those like, see, but you know,
I'm not dead.
Don't bury me.
Don't bury me.
That scene. One that I kind of didn't realize was folk horror because I think people focus so much on the supernatural kind of monster horror of it, but Pumpkinhead. Oh. That is definitely a folk horror because it's all about folklore, and it's, you know, kind of the setting, and it just kind of gets overshadowed by the creature effects, and Stan Winston directed that, and it's I love that movie.
Got it.
And you knew someone that was in that?
Yeah, John D'Aquino.
Yeah. Okay, so there were these two. So there was kind of this the 60s and 70s and kind of on China and Japan make really great folk horror movies. There are a handful from the 60s. They're in that very classic black and white, very shadowy and very scary, grainy. Very grainy, very like disturbing images. And they're two of them, and one's called Kwaidan. The other one's called Onibaba. I watched Onibaba when I was way too young. It had subtitles. It was one of those like late night movies, and it had subtitles, and it has some of the most like some of the scariest images I had ever seen.
I've never
at
heard
that
of either
point.
of those.
Kwaidan's kind of like a anthology tale. It's different. It's different tales of like Japanese folklore.
Okay,
they're both on Max. I've been wanting to rewatch them.
Oh,
so yeah, they're very creepy. So there was one that we watched kind of recently. It was called Unwelcome. That was the one where the couple moves to that house in the middle of like Ireland, and they have like the door in their backyard that goes into the woods. And they like have to give like an offering every night to these, and they forget to do it one night. And I'm not gonna give too much away, but like it was a really crazy movie.
Yeah.
And then I have The Hole in the Ground, which was a Australian movie, I think. That was really good. And then The Ritual, which has Barrow from Downton in it.
Downton.
That's a really good
Barrow.
movie. That's a really good movie.
Mean.
Well, he became nicer as the series progressed.
He found love.
Found Love in a Hopeless Place. And then the last one, it's a comedy. It's called Hot Fuzz. It's got the guy from the Shaun of the Dead movies. It's like that movie, but it's kind of a parody of folk horror, but it still kind of is a folk horror movie, and it's really funny, and I really like it. Yeah, those are the ones that I had. Yeah, those are the ones that I have. There are more, like there's Hereditary.
Oh yeah.
There's The Witch, which was pretty good. And then there are others. There's like the Vincent Price movies from the 60s, like Witchfinder General, that are really boring, but then out of nowhere have like terrifying images. Those kind of like slow burning type movies. I could talk about folk horror all day, but I'm not going to do that. So,
all right.
Let's get into this pilot summary.
Let's do it.
All right. Salem pilot summary. The episode begins as the young Mary Walcott and the rest of the townsfolk of Salem gather in the Commons as Isaac Walton and his lover, Abigail Cook, are placed in the stocks. Isaac is whipped and branded with the letter F for...
fornication.
I was going to say for a whore.
For a whore.
Isaac is whipped and branded with the letter F for fornication by the head selectman, George Sibley. So I kind of I kept seeing the word selectman, and I'm like, was that just their term for like an elected official? And that's what it is.
Yeah.
The town helplessly watches on, too afraid of his assailant, until the young John Alden steps forward and speaks against the feared Puritan, but George warns him that his father's memory can only protect him for so long, angering the rash John, but he is stopped by, is it Giles? Yeah, Giles Corey, which I forget that guy's name, but he's in everything.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from making the situation dire, and warns him that George may have tolerated his father, but he will not rest till he sees him dead. Later that evening, Mary goes to the graveyard where she is secretly meeting John. She scolds her lover for his reckless behavior, who then informs her he is being sent to join the militia to fight the French and the Indians. Mary is disheartened with this news, but John vows he will return for her within a year, splitting a silver coin in half, giving one half to her as a symbol of his vow to her. The couple kisses passionately before they presumably make love. I mean, we're talking some horny kissing up against that tree.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we can presume that they boned in the graveyard.
They boned in the graveyard.
The same night, is it Tituba, I'm assuming?
I think Tituba.
Tituba and Mary sneak into the woods. I skipped the paragraph. Several months later, Mary is going to church accompanied by her friend and servant, Tituba, and she complains of feeling sick, caused by morning sickness, but Tituba tells her she will feel better once she is inside. They stumble into George Sibley, who tells her that she will thank him one day for sending John to war, hinting that he knew of their courtship. Tituba proceeds to tell an upset Mary to stay strong, as it will all be over by tonight. Here we go. The same night, Tituba and Mary sneak into the woods, but Mary begins to have doubts. But Tituba warns her that there is no place in Salem for the child she is carrying, and that George Sibley has sent John to die in the war and will do worse for her when he discovers she is pregnant with John's baby. Once they are deep in the woods, Tituba begins a dark ritual where Mary has visions of dark creatures. Yeah, this is cable. Now that I'm thinking about it, this is in network TV because I'm thinking about a scene later. This is cable. Once they are deep in the woods, Tituba begins a dark ritual where Mary has visions of dark creatures that both frighten her and attack her, terrified of the repercussions of being an unwed pregnant woman. She continues to not only give the life of her unborn child to these creatures, but sells her soul to Satan, thus becoming a witch. A heartbroken Mary weeps when she realizes the child she carries exists no more, and is comforted by Tituba, who promises her the whole world shall be hers in return. Cut 2, smash cut. 7 years later, John returns to Salem and is met by a gruesome sight: 3 poor souls hanging from a tree. As he passes through town, he is seen by both Isaac and Cotton Mather. Returning to his home, he is confronted by Giles, who mistakes him for an intruder as he has believed John had died. The pair celebrates his return with a drink, and John questions him on the people he saw hanging upon his arrival. Giles informs him that Salem is under a witch panic that led by Cotton, the son of the infamous witch hunter, Increase Mather. Yeah, that's these names. Increase Mather, and is shocked to learn that his Mary is now married to the ailing George Sibley. I wonder if they own Sibley's grocery down the street.
I know.
The same day, Isaac is delivering packages to Mary at her home, the House of the Seven Gables, and tells her that John is not only alive, but has returned, leaving her shell-shocked. That evening, John is drowning his sorrows in the tavern where he meets Cotton, who asks for the aid of 3 strong men to subdue a girl and is willing to pay for their services. John accompanies him to the home of Reverend Lewis, where he is attacked by Mercy Lewis, a girl that Cotton believes is under the influence of witchcraft. John helps him tie the girl down to her bed, but mocks the idea of believing the girl is possessed, and he believes that she's just mentally ill. The next day, the residents of Salem attend church. Mrs. Hale, the wife of Magistrate Hale, scolds her daughter, the young Anne Hale, for dawdling, as she wants her in the front row so that she can attract the attention of Cotton, a match she seems to want for her daughter, but Anne does not seem enthusiastic at the prospect and nearly stumbles into Mary Sibley. Once inside, the crowd listens as Cotton warns them of the new dangers that now plague their home: witches. Magistrate Hale publicly speaks of his fears that the worst thing that could happen to Salem is a witch hunt, which Mary replies on her husband's behalf that there are worse things than a witch hunt: a witch. See, that's the logic. You know what I mean? Like, right. That's like the the chicken or the egg, I guess. John steps forward and once again mocks the idea that witches exist, leaving Mary taken aback to see her former lover again, but soon regains her composure and sarcastically welcomes the captain back from his long service defending Salem. She later proceeds to invite him to a dinner she is hosting with her husband that John ungraciously accepts. That evening, John goes to the tavern where he meets Isaac, but at first does not recognize him and threatens him after he sits staring at him, but soon realizes who he is when he shows him the scar on his forehead, showing him the letter F that had been branded into his skin 7 years ago. Isaac pleads with John not to abandon the people of Salem, and again, and tries to convince him that witches are real. The same night, Cotton is at the home of Reverend Lewis, examining her for the witch's nipple, where she has suckled the witch's familiars, but becomes aroused and goes to the divining rod, where he sleeps with a prostitute, Glory Ann. This is when I was like, this is a scene that reminded me that this was a cable show. Yeah, they just full on show them having sex. I mean,
like full on
Ernie, where he sleeps with a prostitute, Gloriana Embry, but is stumbled upon by John Alden. At the dinner party, John attracts the attention of Anne, much to the dislike of Mary and Anne's father, Magistrate Hale, who both watch on as the girl flirts with the captain as the dinner proceeds. As the dinner proceeds, John begins to hallucinate of both Anne and Mary caressing him provocatively under the table, an illusion created by Mary. John excuses himself and is soon joined by Mary herself. Mary reveals that she had been led to believe he had been killed and is shocked to learn the reason for John's absence. He had been captured by the Indians for 7 years. John tries to convince Mary to leave Salem with him, and they start smooching before Mary pulls away and tells him it is impossible for them to be together, but then they are interrupted by Magistrate Hale. Once the party is over, an upset Mary confronts Tituba, who had been the one that had led her to believe John had died, and receives a visit from Giles, who informs her that he saw what she and Tituba had done in the woods all those years ago, and either she must tell John the truth or he will. Yeah. Sorry, Giles. It doesn't look like you're going to be around for much longer.
Yeah.
The next day, John is leaving Salem and stumbles across Anne, who is sketching in the graveyard. These people like hanging out in graveyards.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what else are you going to do? The young girl flirts with the captain, which is observed by Mary Sibley herself, who is standing nearby. She secretly takes a lock of the young girl's hair with her purposes unknown. Yeah,
creepy.
You called that one.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's not good.
Meanwhile, Mary, not wanting John to discover she had aborted their love child, devises a plan to use the young Mercy Lewis to accuse Giles of witchcraft to protect her secret. Mercy, who is under the care of Cotton Mather, is forced to wear a metal muzzle paraded around Salem, led by Cotton, so he can expose the witches. Compelled by Mary, she points to Giles, who is then arrested. John, who is leaving Salem, is stopped by Isaac at gunpoint, who wants to prove that witches really do exist, and leads the captain deep into the woods where the witches meet. At the same time, Mary enforces her power over Cotton, who has imprisoned Giles, who refuses to speak to anyone but John, and insists that Giles is pressed for an answer before she is led away by Tituba so she can begin the witches' Sabbath. Mary returns to her home, where she and Tituba begin the witches' ritual. It's the W's and the R's. The witches' ritual Sabbath, linking her to the other witches in the woods. This is like a tongue twister. All right. Elsewhere, John is shocked to witness the witches in the woods and is unable to see who they are, as they wear the carcass of dead animals. A stag, a pig, and a wolf, but they are discovered, forcing John to shoot one of them so they can escape before they are recognized, causing the connection between the witches and Mary to be broken. John and Isaac return to Salem and find Giles being tortured in the commons for a confession for witchcraft. John tries to save his friend, but is unable to, and he watches as he dies from being pressed with stones.
Oh my God.
That was rough.
Was horrible.
Yeah. In anger, John announces that he is not leaving, threatening the selectmen while being watched by Mary from her balcony. Mary returns inside her home and confronts Magistrate Hill, where it is revealed he is the witch John shot at. Mary demands to know who had seen them, but Magistrate Hill doesn't know, and she reveals her plans to use the Puritans to kill each other to complete the grand rite. End of episode. Yeah, so it's on Hulu. I'm gonna go ahead and say, like, if horror really isn't your thing, folk horror really isn't your thing, maybe this isn't for you. I will say that, like, if you're into, like, kind of sexy stuff, I mean, there is some sexy stuff in this.
Oh, so yeah, there is.
If you're if you like some of the horny stuff, I think that there's something in here for you. But yeah, if you're not a fan of horror, maybe this isn't for you. But I would say this isn't like scary horror. This is just kind of like, this is very like TV horror.
A little suspense. Yeah. Kind of dramatic.
A little supernatural. But mostly, for the most part, mostly it's a drama. Yeah. The ritual at the beginning where where Mary sells her soul and gives her baby away, that scene actually ended up being a little creepy.
And then the stoning scene
that was just hard to watch.
Yeah, that was hard to watch. Yeah.
Nothing that you wouldn't see in Game of Thrones, though. I think that's ultimately, yeah. But yeah, I highly recommend this. I think it's a good one. I think you enjoyed it too.
I did. I liked it.
Honestly, this month with the shows that we had never seen before, I think there were 3 of them, and I think all 3 of them we would continue watching. We haven't done the
third one.
We haven't done the third one yet, but yeah, I recommend this. I recommend this show. I think it's pretty good. It's not the greatest. I don't think it's going to be the greatest show you've ever seen.
And it's only 3 seasons. Yeah. So again, if you're looking for, and kind of a quick weekend or something you feel like you want to finish and watch.
It's 40-minute episodes. Yeah, it's easy. Super easy. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. You think that about wraps this one up?
Yeah.
All right, that wraps up this episode of We Judge a Show by its pilot. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can follow us on Instagram at We Judge Pilot Pod. We're also on Facebook. You can leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments. What you got?
All right, I have the witches. the tombstone, the pregnant lady, trees, the church, kisses,
smooches,
the devil, the beer, the box, kind of represent the packages, the redhead for Anne.
Good one.
Dinner plate for the dinner that they were having, the pencil for sketching, the link, the deer, the pig, the wolf, and okay, I don't know if I wasn't totally paying attention when you were going over the pilot summary. But you did not mention the frog.
I didn't.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I kind of skimmed over the fact that Mary,
you discovered this.
Yeah, that you discovered that George Sibley, who is the big accuser, is actually under a spell. The one who's now married to Mary, and he's like ailing in a wheelchair, is like nearly catatonic. Is that he's not catatonic, he's not ailing, he's under a spell that keeps him submissive. And I don't know what the full point of it was, but it was like she pulls a frog out of his throat, and that's
I think
like
it keeps him silent.
Right. And then because just FYI, we've probably maybe talked about this before. You are not a fan of frogs.
I hate frogs.
You are not a fan of lizards. Frogs, I think, more than lizards.
They're just creepy.
I get it, but like,
when this scene happened, I was like, "Oh my God!" Like,
I totally forgot about that.
And it's not like a little baby frog.
No, we're
it's
talking
like a bullfrog, like the size of your head.
And then when she like shoves it back down his throat, I was like, "Oh, that's so gross."
She took it out to feed it.
That's what it was. Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the frog, and then the last one, the rock.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, we are gonna head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.